again. Now today is a lovely day, right? Yes. Of all the places you can go, of all the things you can do, and you should come here. So there must be something that motivates you to join this group, right? Now if you check Meetup, there are about 4,000 groups. All over the world, there are hundreds in Toronto. There's so many groups. Some group teach you meditation, some group talk about cooking, whatever. Now you have chosen this group, and there must be a reason, right? And whatever, maybe you want to learn something about yourself, about how to be more spiritual, or you may want to learn how to acquire more skills in helping people. You may want to learn to meet new people, but whatever that reason might be, I want to propose to you that the ultimate meaning, the ultimate motivation is the quest for meaning. Now, think for a while, okay? If I ask you about what is the most important motivation for survival and for flourishing, what will be your answer? Anybody want to answer?
Sure, I will. Well, it's been debated. Freud said that it was the will to pleasure that motivated human beings. Adler said that it was the will to power that actually most motivated human beings. And then it was finally Frankl in the third school who said that actually it's not the will to pleasure or the will to power that motivates human beings, but rather it's the will to meaning that fundamentally motivates us. So I guess I'd have to agree with Frankl, although it's taken me a while to go through the different schools of thought on that and compare them and contrast them, because each has their own unique strengths and weaknesses. But I guess the will to meaning motivates people.
Now, maybe Louisa can help us. She graduated from Master in Applied Psychology. He learned a lot from Martin Seligman. What would be the view of positive psychology in terms of the most important motivation?
Well, that's a big question.
Well, what do you learn in that school? I mean, what do they emphasize?
In terms of what really motivates us as
What
people,
kind of motivation?
or what improves our well-being.
Yeah, what the motivation? What's the most important motivation for people?
Well, I think that Marty would say a few things. I think he would definitely say meaning. It's definitely something that motivates people. Positive relationships, that we are motivated to be part of groups, part of families, part of teams, having best friends. But he would also say that we're motivated by happiness, that happiness as an end of itself is something that motivates us to, just want to live a good life. I think that's what Marty would say.
Mm-hmm. Marty Seligman.
Yes.
Yeah, I think he goes through the three. I think he says in his book on happiness, there's different routes to happiness. Like there's the hedonistic, pleasure-seeking route to happiness, and then there's the meaning route to happiness, and then there's the engagement mode of living in activity.
So he just added two more to that, which is relationships and accomplishment.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, and so he's updated his model.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that.
I'm proposing to you that the quest for meaning covers everything you need to be happy, healthy, and productive, and being a good citizen. Now this is a big claim, right? So I'm saying that the motivation of quest for meaning is the ultimate motivation, is the all-comprehensive, all-inclusive motivation. And it's something that people do not realize because, like, how many people kill themselves for money? How many people dying for love? And how many people kill each other for power, right? And we all know that many of such people end up in jail or end up being miserable. So I'm proposing to you that there are secrets to how to live well, how to live a meaningful life. Okay? And those secrets are not what people think they are. Okay? So if you take a glance of the course outline, you can, we live only once. How to live well and how to make it worthwhile. Mm-hmm. And the human agency, that we have the self-determination. Mm-hmm. We have free will. Is a blessing or a curse? The human meaning. Why do we ask why question? Why? Okay? And also, what is the meaning of my life? Right? How do you spend the rest of my life in a way that is satisfying, that is beneficial to other people, so that at the end of my life, I will not be full of regret. Right? Because life goes by quickly. So you only have one life, right? And don't mess it up, for God's sake. Don't ruin it, don't waste it. Don't mess it up, that's why you're here, right? Not learn how to live, but how to help other people to live. So that's why this is what this group is all about. Now a little bit history here. Why I went to BC to start a graduate program in counseling psychology at Trinity Western University. That's way back in 1994 or 5. But anyway, in 1996, I had a vision for a positive motivation, for positive evolution. That's before Martin Seligman came along. Okay? So after this big idea about a positive revolution, to inject positive energy into people's life, into society, how to make that life better for all people, for people who are starving in Africa, or for all people. Okay? So what inspired me is Viktor Frankl's work of logotherapy. Logotherapy basically is healing or therapy through meaning. That's what it is. And he does an experiment to prove his theory. And he proved his theory through his survival and flourishing in Nazi concentration camp. When many people were reduced to the level of being animals, or reduced to live on death. They're just passively lying there, but their turn to go to the altar. And he discovered that the only people who survive and who flourish in a horrible situation are those who have the will to meaning. Mm-hmm. For him, at that time, what motivated him to live with dignity and with purpose and with certain level of joy is the hope of seeing his wife again. He often imagined his true love. Didn't know that she was dead at that time. Okay? But it doesn't matter. To able to communicate with his wife, and one day I'll see her, that already fills his heart with hope and joy. Another thing is that one day, if I survive the camp, I'll read a book on logotherapy. So he would grab a paper and write it down during his years in concentration camp. And the third thing is, that motivates him is altruism, is to help other prisoners to die well, to face the adversity and the horrible life, horrible prospect. That his meaning in life is to make other people feel like it's more meaningful. So that really inspired me. So at that time I said, so I started this international network on personal meaning, for short called IMPM, is to advance this vision, to enhance people's happiness, well-being, and hope, and full functioning through discovering and meaning their life. That's how it started. Now, IMPM has three divisions. One is on research. So for that, we published a journal there, okay, on existential psychology, and we organize a meaning conference every 2 years. Okay, that's for research part. For practice, we offer Summer Institute and workshop to teach people meaning-oriented counseling therapy. Okay, so, and then the third division is public education to help the general public. That life doesn't have to be boring. Life doesn't have to be horrible. Life doesn't have to be depressive, absurd. Life can be joyful and hopeful. So the public education part. So for that, we publish a positive living newsletter. You all subscribing to that. So you can sign up at Mina.ca. Okay? And we also have this positive living, this kind of forum. And this project, Meetup, is the latest effort to connect with people, saying that you do not have to be stuck in where you are. You don't have to be stuck in your rotten marriage, rotten work, in your misery, in your trap. You don't have to be where you are, and you can move forward to a better life. So find out for yourself what your meaning, your passion, your purpose, your strengths, and the whole bunch of other things you need to find out. Right? So that's why we're here. So, any questions about this dreamer's account of what happened? Now, that paper, giving positive psychology away, give you a little bit about history about what I've done in the past 20 some odd years, 20 years. I use meaning as a tool to help people. Okay? And so I'm open for questioning and.
So where do humans get their meaning from?
That will be in lesson 3. So I mean, everything that the common answer is that, well, nobody can dictate what meaning is. Correct. Everybody can discover their own meaning. Frank said that, okay? Saying that we cannot dictate to people. Correct. But what is incorrect is that whatever people choose will be the right path. Because what you think is meaningful might end up destroying you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so there are objective criteria. There are objective criteria based on research and based on time-tested values that certain things are bad for you. I don't hesitate to tell people that you'll be the most miserable life. Not you, okay?
That's okay.
You'll be the most miserable person, Duncan, if only live for yourself. Okay? as a Martin Seligman will agree with that, right? You be the most miserable person, you all ever think about yourself.
Mhm.
That's why in Martin Seligman's system, the PERMA, positive emotion, engagement, meaning, accomplishment, and relationship. Meaning is the center. Meaning, according to him, is devote your life to something bigger than yourself, right? So I'm saying that's important. That's the central to the meaning. But meaning involves more than that. Meaning always involved with other two as well. Okay? So if you don't know how to live for something bigger than yourself, then you'll be always frustrated. You never have enough. You never have enough. You never have enough love, enough money, enough power. Because you have to remove your eye away from yourself to other people, to God, to other cause. That's the short answer. But we'll find out more about that. Okay? Any other questions?
I think the meaning has a lot to do with the context that you are dealing with. Because, I mean, like you said about if you're looking for just meaning for yourself, you can't really exclude yourself from the society, because what's the best for you might be totally destructive to the society, because everybody just think of us as an individual, then they ended up crushing each other and still make each other miserable. And it's funny that Professor Wong mentioned Jesse, because I was probably 2 years older than Jesse when I first met Lillian and Professor Wong in Peterborough, right?
Yeah.
That was many years ago. And right now he's my son. So
Well, third generation, your second generation, right?
yeah, that's right. So
My student.
yeah, that's why. I mean, for me, I've moved back and forth from China and stay here in Canada, right? And going through different society. I went to India. I went to different part of the world. And interesting enough, that this is something that I've been searching for all my life, is that what is the meaning of my life? And also more interesting is that in different stage of my life, that meaning changed and evolved. And fortunately, okay, I've lived destructive life, I've lived constructive life, and fortunately, at least in the age of 40 something, that I started to realize that, hey, I begin to realize that this meaning of the life is actually a journey of searching. And that journey of searching is what brings me more fulfillment.
Well put. So, we'll get more detail. Well, see, this is very important here. Okay? Why is I say that the question of meaning is the ultimate meaning? Because it is relevant to this young man, Jesse James.
Just then.
Relevant to him, and also relevant to this old man, Paul Wong. Now, for him, the young people will be identity. Who am I? What I'm going to grow up to be? Am I going to be pretty, or am I going to be rich? Or am I going to be a rock star, or am I going to be a scientist? Young people, right? They're concerned about their identity, right? And can't take it. For me, for her, will be in the middle. What I do with the rest of my life, coming out, right? For me, I have one foot in the grave already, right? I'm living on borrowed time. When I'm 74, how many people live in the 70s, right? So I said, well, how can I pass my learning, my wisdom to young people? So that can motivate me, right? How can I pass on all my learning, 30 years of research and practice and searching, how can I pass? That will motivate me to have this purpose. Right? So there is a process and a journey. 那个意思来，拿对意思来啊，帮手。So ask Mandarin, okay? Ask Mandarin, Cantonese, Chinese, Shanghai. You think about that? Anyway, so where am I? And also context is important. You see, one thing about my theory about cosmic meaning is that is the individual part, that is the collective part. You see? As society plays a big role. You live in a society where you have no freedom, where you cannot speak your mind, and you have no freedom to worship, or you're being discriminated against. Then you say, well, I'll rise up and start a revolution, right? And that's what's happening, in Middle East. In many parts of the world, people say, I can't really live as a human being. Human agency, right? Human agency. I can't really live as a human being if I cannot determine my own future. Right? So conscious is important. And there's a lot to cover here. Now look at the world, what happened. No authoritarian, totalitarian regime can last for long. Because deep in the human heart is the yearning for freedom and self-expression. And that's why I pray for China and I cry for China. I went to China to lecture several times. But I still hope that in China people can meet and gather and worship and the way to hear. So I have said all I need to say, and I think that it's time for you guys to say a few things about yourself. And we can begin with my friend Louisa, and she is an expert on pop psychology, so she can help me. So why don't you start with Louisa?
So what would you like me to start with?
Anything you want to say about, how brought you here and how you can help?
Sure. Well, Paul and Lillian and I are working on establishing some initiatives in positive psychology here in Canada. So we're doing a lot of work, both in academic arenas as well as trying to get a network of positive psychology practitioners across Canada. So I wanted to know more about Paul's work around meaning, because positive psychology is such a broad umbrella around well-being, and Paul has done such a depth, Paul and Lillian have done so much work in the area of meaning. And when I think about my own happiness and where that comes from, it certainly comes from a very, very deep sense of meaning, I think more so than, although there's a good dose of positive emotions in there too. So I think that it is so important, and even if you think about relationships, it's all part of trying to build a meaningful life, isn't it? So that's why I'm here.
Jessica?
I'm Jessica, and I'm a graduate of a program that they founded in Langley, Trinity Western. So I work in counseling and interested in recognize the centrality of meaning, and I'm interested in both meaning-centered therapy, but also in my own personal journey, I guess. Meaning questions have become all the more salient to me in the last few years, and so have both kind of a professional and a personal investment. For now.
For me, just because my family, we just immigrated here in 2005. I come from Beijing. In China, we have a very good job, and anything just for the children's education. I have twin daughters, so we come here. Right now, my daughter's in the university. For me, it's very simple. Before, we just start hard. When we was in school, we started hard. We working, we do a good job. But now, I need to communicate with my daughters. And I want to learn how to communicate with the youth. I cannot understand the name very well. I hope I can learn and learn this by and like this is another science, another topic. So I was the senior IT engineer for years. I don't think it's too much before, but now I have to think about for my daughter and how can we can learn together and grow up together in this new country. So that is the reason I'm coming here, learning.
So you were engineer before?
Yeah, I was senior engineer in China. Yes.
Engineer.
Yes.
Yes.
So I don't know the psychology, the science, sometimes just the mathematical or computer, something very simple for me. I didn't think too much, but I still feel when I was in China, I feel meaningful. Right? I like the job, enjoy doing my job, working and study. Right? So, but I know why today for the youth, like the something become complex.
How old is your daughter?
They are around the 22. Yeah.
Is she in university?
Yeah, they are university. And another side is they are twins.
Twins?
Yeah, so I hope they help each other, but then maybe just because they are twins, then they didn't, and they don't have enough social life. That is, I'm worried about it. So I want to know and I want to learn how to encourage them. What is the motivation for them? Make new friends and different.
You got to meet with my sister Jennifer. She's also a twin.
Oh.
Remember on the meetup, she see two people. She and her twin sister Karen.
Oh.
So for the long weekend, she had people from Hong Kong visiting their family, so she can come. Yeah. It's interesting.
Yeah. So my name is Jesse. I'm in grade 10 right now. I go to grade 10. Yeah. Going into grade 11 next year. I go to Holy Trinity School. It's somewhere in Richmond Hill, and I guess I came here because my mom is friends with professors, and I also have, like next year, I want to take an introduction to sociology, anthropology, and psychology and stuff. So it kind of interests me because I can't, like when I think of the word meaning, I can't put a perfect definition for it. I don't know how to properly, I don't know what it means because mostly I know is that it's something. It's like what your life is going to be, and what the professor said before. Right now a lot of youth, once they go into like ages of the grade 11 or grade 12, they're still trying to think, what am I going to do with my life? It's like it's tough for me to picture how, because it's kind of tough for me to see what I'm really good at in terms, and then it's just hard to see the future and with meaning, with your life. Eventually, maybe if I can know what it is, eventually I can just get a good life for myself.
Yeah, very good. I hope that we can more young people taking part in this. Your daughters.
Yeah, how I can motivate them
Yeah,
to join.
Tell them, I want to see them.
My Chinese name is Dong Mei, and my English name is actually Ocean, as for Wang Yang Da Wang.
Ocean.
Yes, Ocean at the Pacific Ocean. I guess after years I got fed up people asking me how to spell my name, so that's why I have to pick an English name.
I got it right, did I?
Yes, your Chinese name is right. That's right, Lilian. I was born in China, Guangzhou, and then I came here after my freshman in China in the university, and I went to Trent, and that's where I met Lilian and Professor Wong in the Chinese fellowship over there. For me, I agree with Professor Wong that the meaning of the life is that towards the end of your life, for example, if I'm going tomorrow, and then if I ask myself, have I lived a fulfilled life? Have I had regrets that I really wanted to mend so badly? Okay, I always have regrets, okay, all the time. but but you know, like it wasn't something that I felt like it was really so bad that I had to, you know, like mend it right away, right? Because life is a learning journey. So I graduated from Trent, and then I started to work for insurance company, and then I got married, and I had Jessie, and then I had a divorce. I still have Jessie, which is the best thing that happened to me. And then I went to work in China for an American company for 4 years, and then I came back and I set up my own business, still having business in China. So that has been basically my life. So when Jessie, I can understand why Jessie defined the meaning of life, because when you were younger, your parents told you is that what you're going to do is your life, career-wise. Okay? Or is it really my life, or is it just part of my life? And now I know it's only a small part of my life. What I do for career, what I do in an everyday business, that is a part of my life, but it's not my life, okay? However, I'm not going to correct Jessie because he will find his own way. He will define his own life. I can't really put my module of my life on his head and say that I know better than you because I'm your mom. I have eaten more salt than rice you ate in China, right? And that's the definition for Chinese, is that when you get older, the older generation have more wisdom than the younger generation. And I don't know whether that's right all the time, because we might be having more experience, but are we going to be wiser than them? Only time can tell, and only the individual can tell, right? So that's why as a mother, I suppose that I'm willing to let my son to make his own mistake and set his own path. However, I'm here to tell you what I think. And whether to accept it or not, it is up to you. And I think with Jessie, I encourage him to come to this seminar because I have noticed that for teenagers, okay, actually 20 is better. When they're 15, they're worse. Okay? Because there was a time that they felt that they were adult, but they were actually kids. They wanted to do adult things, but then they don't really have the maturity to handle what become an adulthood. Okay, so it was really tough for them going through that stage, and I saw that coming, you know. And I'm very lucky to have Jessie because at least he communicated with me, and then we talk on an equal basis, you know. I don't really think that I know better just because I'm a mother, but I really respect him for what he does. However, and I have found that kids in their age sometimes really worries me because, I mean, I'm a mother, single mom who drives them to sports, to match, to everything, right? So I usually have carloads of kids that are from, they're Indian, they're African, so I have, you know, like kids in my car that were different colors, okay? So they would talk about things, and then there's sometimes, I don't usually get interfere, but sometimes Jessie thinks that I'm a bit, you know, like annoying. Because I would tell them that certain things, in my opinion, are not right, okay? And what are the things that are not right? And I said that, not because you didn't get 80% or 90% in your work, but when you bully people, when you trash talk people, when you're not kind to people, that is wrong, okay? Because that's sort of like part of the meaning of your life. It's every day. Can you be willing to give a little more kindness instead of, you know, like just being hard on other people, or build your happiness based on other people's suffering? And I said that is right and wrong. So that's why I take Jessie here, because I said to him, you will learn a lot from other people.
Thank you. John?
My name is John. I'm, first of all, I'm glad to be here, to be embedded among a group of people who are positive thinkers, apparently, and obviously I'm here also to get a little enlightened about this concept of meaning. Of course, when I heard all the stuff I've heard so far, I kind of been reflecting on my life, and since I'm getting on, I sort of thought, well, you know, I've had bouts of unhappiness and happiness throughout my life, and you know, one of the things, you know, you were talking about your son here, and I wish I had the opportunity like him to be here, like so many years ago. I'm not going to do it myself, but you know, I grew up. My parents died early, and all the things I've learned in my life, I learned basically by myself, more or less, with the help of some teachers through secondary school and university. But, you know, the times when I felt unhappy, you know, I always sort of wondered, you know, I asked the perennial question, why, right? And it still dogs me today. But I wanted to point out that one of the things I learned, maybe in a book, heard somebody say it on a TV interview or something, number 9 on your meaning and flourishing, do the right thing or face the consequences. That has been sort of my mantra for many, many years. I can't say how long, maybe at least a decade. And whenever I had to make decisions about certain things, especially very crucial things, I always thought that if I did the right thing, I would not face adverse consequences. I would be happy, and I always did that. When I separated from my wife way back in the mid '80s, I did all the right things. You know, I had to, like you, I had to separate. I was really happy. It was a sort of a long-term euphoria. It wasn't just a short-term euphoria. I was glad I got out of the relationship for whatever reasons, but it's like, you know, I did all the right things. Certain things I did. For example, she supported me in university, and I made sure for years after I left, you know, from the little job, the non-job I had, I made sure I sent her money to make sure she can get a chance to go to university if she wanted to. So those are the sort of right decisions I made, and I always thought, wow, I feel so good about it. And I would never face the consequence of like feeling guilty or, you know, thinking that I'm such a bad person, and you know, I'm grateful and whatever. So anyway, so that's just a little peek into my life, and I continue on the quest for greater meaning, understanding what my life is all about, and how can I be more happy. I'm relatively happy, but I know there are lots of gaps in different aspects of my life. And I thought perhaps when I'm in here and I learn and grow in the knowledge and about different things, about meaning, it might make me feel more self-fulfilling and happier. Thank you.
Okay.
Hey there. A couple of months ago I realized that working 14, 16 hours a day wasn't as fun as I had thought maybe it would be. I never really thought it would be. Anyway. I haven't really kept in touch with any of my friends from high school or university, so I see them now maybe a couple times a year. And I figured that Meetup would be a great way to meet new people and find a bit of meaning. So when this group popped up, well, it just made a lot of sense. Here I is.
So my name's Rob. I first started thinking about meaning-related questions in an undergraduate course. Is actually the central focus was on Viktor Frankl. It's called Spirituality in Psychotherapy, and it really associated the spiritual aspects of meaning. And when I took that course, it really made me realize the difference of intrinsic versus extrinsic sources of meaning. And I found myself at the time struggling with that big difference between what I saw society, you know, promoted as the source of meaning and values and the things to strive for. But I also found, just as very correctly as Viktor Frankl pointed out, that it left people with a huge existential vacuum. And so I looked at that discrepancy, and I was really intrigued by Viktor Frankl's psychological insights into that very issue as what happens when people follow an extrinsic source of meaning that they're provided for by their culture, instead of really thinking, well, does it really match with what I really believe? And I found that to actually be a huge source of struggle, and it's not easy, as Frankl said. And so I became very interested in the issues of mental health and how that relates to meaning or lack of meaning. And so I went on to pursue a master's degree in the philosophy of mental health, and from there I'm now enrolled in a psychology program online. I'm doing my PhD in psychology now, and I hope to do counseling, and I'm very interested in the meaning-centered counseling approach, because I feel that it matches with all that I've learned and how it can help people who are struggling with issues of meaning.
Okay, you can just pan the camera. That way, not important. Okay, I'm going to try to condense as much as I possibly can right now. my first interest in psychology started at a very young age for me. It was around 8 or 9 when I found out that my grandma had schizophrenia. And the first initial interest was out of fear, because like it's difficult to see someone go from being, I'm not going to say normal, there's no one who is really normal, but being a certain way to me and then changing like that. And the interest came into how the mind works, and then it started to grow from there. I entered university in 1998, finished with my BA in 2002, came back into the real world and wasn't happy. So I went back to do my honors. That's when I met Dr. Hart, who introduced me to Dr. Lee Wang, Dr. Paul Wang. He became my mentor at the University of Windsor, and I think maybe he saw something in me that I didn't see, but he kept pushing me to do more. He said, this is something that'd be good for you, so push. I finished my honors, wrote a thesis, a quantitative thesis, and then I did my master's at the Michigan School of Professional Psychology, and they specialize in humanistic psychology, which is very similar to positive psychology. And I think what excited me about coming here today, and I talked to Dr. Wang about this, was that I've been out of school now. I graduated with my master's in 2009, and came back to Toronto, and it's been very difficult for me trying to move forward, because the humanistic practice is, it's not new in any means, but because it's not, a lot of it isn't research based, or so they say, it's been harder to take off, especially here in Ontario. So joining this group, I'm hoping will allow me to open up my psychological horizons. Hopefully I can learn more and see what I need to do to do more with my degree. I'm very interested in positive psychology, counseling psychology, spiritual, everything. It's something I've wanted to do for a while, and now it's just that frustration of not being able to do it. So I was hoping by meeting with some people, it'd be a great way for me to network, learn more. And I want to make a quick comment about meaning. I heard everyone saying things during their open discussion, and you said something about having one foot in the grave kind of thing. Yes, for you. I've kind of learned to live my life like I have one foot in the grave at all times, and I say this to my friends all the time. I don't know in the morning if I'm going to wake up and survive my whole day, so I do my best, and I fail at times, but I do my best to try to live every single moment like it's my last, because you never know. Death can take you at any age.
Amen.
Any age, you know. And I've kind of tried to turn that fear of death into more of a positive thing to drive me to like excel any way I can.
So that will be.
Where is that? What number is that?
9.
Is that 9 again? That's here and transferring suffering and death. Yes, that's where I am right now. So I'm sure you'll learn more about me as we meet again, but that's where I stand right now.
I got your turn.
Thank you.
I'm Edgar. I sell technology, and I'm on a quest for happiness. The end.
Short and sweet.
Short and sweet, efficient, right to the point.
Hey, Claire.
I'm Claren. My name is Claren, and I'm just in the point in my life where I'm in transition. Like I'm going through a lot of changes, and I've always been interested in everything meaningful, and I read meaningful books, and all my books are meaningful, and there's nothing that's, and in spirituality and anything like that, I'm always interested to live my life in a spiritual way, and I don't seem to like superficial talk and superficial things, so I stay quiet a lot. So so when this group came up, I thought, this would suit me, because I'm always interested in anything meaningful to make my life happier and healthier, and have well-being in my life, and to help others as well with whatever I learn to help others in my life.
So you're in the right group.
Yeah.
And we'll turn on. Is it still taping?